The link between rising heat and human psychology is far deeper and more disturbing than most people realize. The human mind, like the body, depends on stability, on predictable seasons, breathable air, restorative sleep, and a sense of safety. As the planet warms, those foundations are quietly crumbling. What scientists call heat bursts, sudden, intense surges of hot air that can raise nighttime temperatures by 10 degrees or more in minutes, are no longer rare anomalies. They are becoming symbols of a larger breakdown, a world where the atmosphere itself feels unstable, unpredictable, and hostile. These violent heat events, combined with relentless heat waves and chronic climate stress, are not only damaging physical health, they are corroding mental resilience, altering behavior, and deepening a collective sense of dread. Extreme heat acts on the human brain in ways that few people anticipate. When the body overheats, blood flow to the brain changes, neurotransmitters shift, and mood regulation falters. People become irritable, anxious, and prone to impulsive behavior. Studies have repeatedly shown spikes in aggression, domestic violence, and violent crime during heat waves. These are not mere coincidences, they are physiological consequences of thermal stress. As nighttime temperatures remain high, the body and mind never fully recover. Sleep becomes shallow or impossible, leading to exhaustion, poor judgment, and emotional instability. In this way, a single prolonged heat event can unravel social order at the micro level, one sleepless night at a time. For vulnerable populations, those already struggling with poverty, illness, or displacement, the psychological toll of heat is even more severe. In urban slums and rural farming regions alike, people live without air conditioning or reliable shelter. The constant exposure to oppressive heat creates what psychiatrists now describe as climate anxiety and eco-distress, a form of chronic stress rooted in environmental instability. It is not only fear of the future, it is exhaustion from surviving the present. Imagine working outdoors in 42 degrees Celsius heat, coming home to a stifling room, hearing news of another failed crop or flood, and realizing there is no relief in sight. That relentless awareness that the environment itself is turned against you grinds away at mental health, creating a sense of entrapment that borders on despair. Farmers in heat-stressed regions are already showing the early symptoms of climate-induced psychological collapse. In India, Australia, and parts of Africa, rising temperatures and crop failures have been directly linked to increased suicide rates among agricultural workers. Each harvest lost to drought or heat is not just an economic blow, it is an existential wound, stripping away identity, purpose, and hope. Communities that once relied on the rhythm of seasons now live in constant uncertainty. Water scarcity, food insecurity, and heat stress merge into a single, crushing mental burden. Even in developed countries, the emotional toll of heat is growing. Elderly people trapped in overheated apartments experience anxiety and confusion as their bodies struggle to regulate temperature. Parents in cities face guilt and helplessness as their children suffer through sweltering nights. Climate change is turning the air itself into a psychological pressure chamber. Heat bursts and prolonged heat waves also intensify inequality in invisible ways. Wealthier individuals can retreat into air-conditioned homes, while poorer families are left to endure suffocating heat that erodes both physical and mental well-being. As temperatures rise, so does resentment, a social tension fueled by survival disparity. Those who suffer the most feel abandoned, ignored, or expendable. This emotional divide can ferment political unrest and mistrust, further destabilizing already fragile societies. Climate stress does not only weaken individuals, it frays the bonds between them, pushing communities toward fragmentation and hostility. At the same time, the very institutions meant to protect public health are unprepared for the psychological consequences of heat. Hospitals and clinics see more patients with anxiety, insomnia, panic attacks, and depression during extreme heat events, yet few systems track these cases as climate-related. Psychiatrists warn that rising temperatures can interfere with medication effectiveness for mood disorders, yet cooling centers and emergency protocols rarely include mental health support. As more people experience panic, aggression, or despair during heat events, the burden on emergency services grows, creating feedback loops of burnout among healthcare workers themselves. When both the public and the professionals caring for them are overwhelmed, society begins to crack under invisible pressure. Even those not directly exposed to extreme heat feel the psychological aftershocks. The relentless media coverage of climate disasters, floods, fires, droughts, feeds a global sense of helplessness. People internalize the chaos of a planet in distress. They experience anticipatory anxiety, nightmares, and guilt about the future of their children. This phenomenon, sometimes called climate trauma, spreads quietly across generations. Teenagers report feelings of doom and nihilism, convinced that their future has already been stolen by a world that refused to act. It is a form of collective grief with no clear end, because the source of pain, the changing planet, does not allow closure. The danger in all of this is not just emotional fatigue, it is the slow normalization of despair. When heat, drought, and storms become routine, empathy begins to erode. People become desensitized to suffering, retreating into isolation or denial. Governments, faced with endless emergencies, may begin to treat psychological collapse as an acceptable cost of adaptation. Yet no infrastructure upgrade or technological fix can substitute for the loss of collective morale. A civilization that stops believing in its future is one already in decline. The warning is stark. Climate change is not only heating the planet, it is reshaping the human mind. The ocean's stored heat, the atmosphere's surges, the sleepless nights, and the anxious mornings are part of a single continuum of stress that humanity has never faced before. If we continue to treat mental health as a secondary issue in climate planning, we will find ourselves with a world of physically surviving but psychologically broken populations. The temperature of the air is rising, yes, but so too is the temperature of the human psyche, simmering under pressure, waiting for release. When that pressure breaks, it will not just be bodies collapsing from heat, it will be entire societies losing the will to endure.